Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Derek. Today we're going to be doing a live lab, so it's going to be something that I've done once from scratch, but not too many times. So we'll be looking at documentation as we go, and if we run into issues along the way, then we'll just take a look at those and see if we can figure them out. All right. So the goal here today is we are going to use Terraform to create a basically where to go, a layout that looks like this. So we've got an EC2 instance here, we've got an RDS database instance, and then over here we've got Secrets Manager that's going to be storing a password for this database. Okay. So the reason why this is important is because when you're making applications, especially in something like Terraform, you don't want to have a password just sitting out there in your code in plain text. That's a horrible idea. It goes against many security best practices, including AWS's. So the objective here is that when we as developers need to access this application, we can hit our EC2 instance, and then that EC2 instance can then communicate with the database using the password that is, again, stored in Secrets Manager as opposed to just plain text in our source code. All right, so this is what it's going to look like when we are all done. Some prerequisites that you'll need for this are you need some kind of code editor, so I like Visual Studio Code. You are going to need Terraform, of course, and you're also going to need the AWS CLI installed on your computer. And if you're not sure how to, do those, then you could just, say Terraform install. Okay, there you go. Install Terraform. You would just find, your platform, whether you're using Mac, Windows, whatever. You then need to do the AWS CLI, so same exact thing, install AWS CLI. Right here, you just go pick your OS and you're off to the races. All right, and then Visual Studio Code, just same thing, Google download Visual Studio Code, whatever. And then once you have all that opened up, we can go ahead and get into it, all right? So the first thing that we are going to do is we're going to make a directory from our project, or for our project rather, that we are then going to initialize Terraform into. All right, so on Windows, which is what I'm on, that would just look like make a directory, let's just call this Terraform AWS Secrets, and then we're going to cd into there. So now we are in our directory, okay? From here, we're going to initialize Terraform into our new directories by writing Terraform in it. And you can see that now Terraform is initialized inside of this empty directory. It has no config files, so we obviously need to make some things. So I'm just gonna come over here, I'm gonna go to Open Folder. I'm going to go to where that is. So right here, select folder. Yes, I trust the authors of this. I am the author. So, all right, so now we have our folder open here, but of course it is empty. So the first thing that we want to do here, let's open our terminal back up, is we want to create a Secrets Manager secret that's going to reference our database password. All right, and what that looks like is if you Google, so for example, we're using AWS. If you were to Google Terraform AWS documentation, it'll take you into the documentation for the AWS provider. And on the left here, you'll see all the different AWS services. You'll probably recognize just a few of these. And we need to start out by going down here to Secrets Manager. So let's expand that. And the first thing we want to do is we just want to make this basic secret, right? So it says here that the syntax we should be using looks something like this. So we would say, okay, this is going to be a resource using AWS Secrets Manager secret, and then you would create a name for it. So example, whatever. So what I am going to do is I am going to come into here and I'm going to create a file, and I'm just going to call it secrets. Let's just call it secret because it's only going to have one secret in there. So secret.tf. And from here, what we are going to do is I'm just going to actually copy this a little bit here. All right. Just so we can save ourselves from typing. Let's go ahead and paste it in there. And let's change this from plain text to, oh, it looks like I don't have Terraform installed on here yet. I just got a new computer, so that would explain that. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to install that so we can see what that looks like on BSC. So if I come over here, search for Terraform, hit install, and basically what this is going to do is it's just going to make things look prettier and formatted a little better so that it doesn't just look like plain text like it did there. So that should be good to go there. So let's now just close that, reopen it here, and then let's come down here. So you can see now that Terraform is selected. So if I paste this again, yeah, that's going to look a lot better than just a bunch of plain white letters. Okay, especially as we start adding things to it, it's just is going to look better. So let's say we could just call this, let's just maybe call this database password. And then we're going to leave this as name equals, we want to make it the same, so database password. Okay, and then we're going to come down here, and this is where we are actually going to specify where this password is going to live in Secrets Manager. Okay, so I'm going to actually copy something that I have off screen over here to again save us some typing. So let's just break down what we have here. We've got a slightly different syntax here, right? You can see now that it has the word version appended to it. And if we come back here, we can click on this syntax here. And what this is saying is that it provides a resource to manage the Secrets Manager secret version, including its secret value. Okay? And what it basically says is that, okay, we need to, again, define this version of our secret. Again, we would give it a name here. We're going to reference the same name we already used earlier. You would give it a ID here, just replacing this again with the actual name. And then you would define what the secret string is going to be. Okay, again, this is just creating the secret initially. This isn't necessarily something that we are going to keep alive in our application code all the time. All right. So if we come back here, you can see that that's just essentially what I copied. So we have it here, here, and it's already, again, replaced the proper password here, for name for us rather here to match up above here. And I just gave it this as its value. Of course, in a real situation, you'll want your secrets to be more secure than that. But that is what it is going to be for this lab. So we will just go ahead and leave it at that. Okay. So now that we have this file here that's going to create our secret for us and then store it in Secrets Manager, okay, we can now create a new file that creates our database instance. So I'm just going to call this rds.tf. Okay. And if we now come over here to our documentation and let's just come down to RDS. What we want to do is we just want to create a simple database instance. So we could just come here to AWS DB instance. As you can see, there's a whole lot you could do with your database resources. That's kind of the whole point of Terraform, right? It's infrastructure as code. So let's go ahead and go to AWS DB instance. And you can see here that the way to define your database instance is going to be similar to whatever you would see in a configuration on the console. It's just using the CLI, so it's maybe a little bit more efficient. I've already got something copied though over here that's going to create a lighter database instance, so it'll create a T2 instead of a T3. And it's also going to be using Postgres instead of MySQL. So feel free to copy this if you want. But again, we want to make sure that on the password, again, this is not what we want to have as just our plain text password forever. Okay, so what this essentially does is it's going to manage the secret that's going to be getting created up here in this secrets file that's then going to live in Secrets Manager. Okay, so what this does is it says, okay, the password is going to be referenced in AWS Secrets Manager, the secret version, with the name of database password, and the secret string is the actual password. So if we come back here, you can see that the secret string would be this actual password here. Okay, and then this is just a bunch of default settings that we are going to leave as is. We don't really need to change much here. We're just looking to have a nice, simple database instance that references that password from Secrets Manager. All right. So at this point, we now have a file for our database. We've got a file for our secret, and we now need a file for our EC2 instance. Okay. So what we're going to do now is let's create a new file, and we'll just call it ec2.tf. Okay, and if we come back here, let's minimize. Okay, I guess it's not wanting to minimize RDS, but let's just go up here to ec2, and same thing, we are just looking to create a basic instance. So this is the section that we want to use. Again, I've already gotten a template over here that I'm going to copy paste. However, what we want to do is we want to replace this AMI with a region-specific AMI, right? Because the way that my AWS CLI is configured is, I believe it'll show it here. So I've got my secret access key, but you can see that it's configured to use US East 1. So if I provide an AMI that doesn't exist in this particular region, then it's going to fail. Okay, so I need to make sure that I provide the appropriate AMI. So how we can do that is if we just come over here and if we go to EC2, and let's just go ahead and just say launch instance. We're not actually going to do it here. So Amazon Linux. So here's the AMI ID right here. And again, we are in US East 1 here. So we just want to make sure that it is a Amazon Linux 2 AMI ID. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. And let's go back here. So Amazon Linux 2. So right here. Perfect. So let's just go ahead and grab this AMI ID. And so it starts with 0482. And as you can see, this AMI is different. So who knows where this one actually came from. We'll just go ahead and replace it there. And we will just double check that T2 micro is also an option for this particular instance type, and it is, so that should be fine. And let's just go ahead and cancel this here, back here. All right. And we could just leave this as our name here for this instance. That's totally fine. This just gives us a better way to identify it when it's launched. Okay. So again, pretty simple here, but all this is going to do when we deploy with Terraform is it's going to create an EC2 instance. That's what's going to be the thing we actually connect to as a developer. All right. So we now theoretically have enough to run our first Terraform plan. So we've got a file that sets up our EC2 instance, a file that sets up a secrets in Secrets Manager, and a file that sets up our database instance. Okay? So what we can do now is we can say, all right, we want to run a Terraform plan. So it looks like we dependency lock. So I'm wondering if we ran this in the other directory. Okay, let's just go ahead and run Terraform init because it said to run Terraform init, so we'll go ahead and do that. All right, so now it's been successfully initialized. I'm assuming this is because we ran it too soon and we also ran it in the projects directory instead of running it in the Terraform AWS Secrets directory. But regardless, here we are now, so let's go ahead and try that again, a Terraform plan, and this is going to look better. So you can see that it created a Terraform state file briefly. Okay, so unsupported argument on rds.tf, so let's go ahead and open that. So AWS DB instance example, name, MyDB. It looks like it perhaps wants us to match up the name there, so let's go ahead and do that. Give that a save. Let's try that again. And if it still doesn't work, then we'll just get rid of this and we'll just say that, okay, the name is going to be here instead of here, all right? So let's give that a go. And I believe now it should create this and it'll name it example, our database instance. So let's go ahead and try that. All right, there we go. That looks better. So now what you can see is let's scroll up here. There's a bunch of stuff, but it's saying, okay, a database instance named example is going to be created. It's not going to know, things like its IP addresses or anything until after it actually creates it, which is what this means. But some of the things that we specified, like the amount of storage we want, you can see that up here. The version, again, we specified that up here. So it just kind of tells us, again, what we're actually going to be doing. Instance example will be created. So again, the AMI we specified up here. Same thing, and then just again down here, it's going to create this database password in Secrets Manager. So it says that, okay, we have no errors, and the plan is to add these resources and to go ahead and do that. So again, you might be thinking, okay, well, there's only 3 things here, but if we look here, it's also going to create the password itself. This secret version is what creates the password itself, and this just creates the actual secret in Secrets Manager. So it's kind of 2 layers there, but once it gets created, we'll look at it in the console. It'll make a little more sense. But it looks okay. So let's go ahead and run this. We'll say Terraform apply, and it should ask us to confirm. It's again just summarizing our plan, and it's saying, do you want to perform these actions? We're going to say yes, we do. And it's now going to start provisioning everything. So let's just give it a few minutes here and see that it creates everything for us without any issues, without any errors, anything of that nature. But in the meantime, let's take a quick few minute break because it is going to take just a little bit of time to get this deployed. And then once we come back, we will go ahead and look at everything that it created. Alright, well, I'm glad I came back a little early. It looks like we do have an error. So it's saying that it cannot find version 13.3 for Postgres. Likely because when I changed it to be Postgres from the example that was using MySQL, I neglected to change the version number. So we can solve that pretty easily by doing the same thing that we did to find the AMI here. So if I go to RDS, we're just going to act like we're going to create an RDS instance on Postgres, and we're going to look at the versions. So it looks like, yep, so as you can see, 13.3 in fact does not exist. So let's maybe try using 13.8. I'm not sure if it's going to require the R1, but I'm just going to leave that out for now because it's not typically something I specify. But let's just say 13.8 in our rds.tf file, so 13.8. Actually, you know what? I am going to put that just, I guess, because that's how it's listed. It's usually a good idea to do that. So let's do 13.8-R1. Go ahead and give that a save, and let's run Terraform plan again to make sure everything looks okay. So you can see here that it says, okay, the plan is to add 1. Well, that's likely because the last time we ran Terraform plan, it successfully created everything. So you can see here it created our secret reference, creation complete, the password itself, creation complete, and our AWS instance, EC2 instance was created, but the database instance was not created, so we need to do that. So it looks like theoretically our plan should be okay. So I'm going to again run Terraform apply, and we're gonna have to say yes again. So we're going to hit yes again, and it shouldn't take, okay, so it still doesn't like R1, so let's just go ahead and change this back to 13.8 and try one more time here. And we're going to say yes again. Okay, so RDS is not supporting db.t2 micro, engine Postgres. So I'm wondering if it does not have T2 micro as well, but it looks like we got the version right. So let's come back up here. So free tier. So T2 micro is not a thing. So let's try T3 micro instead. So db.t3 micro, and hopefully third or time's the charm, or whatever it was, fourth time, I don't know, we'll see here. And we'll go ahead and say yes. There. Master username user cannot be used as a reserved word by the engine. Okay. So let's just say my username there, and as you can see, there are some differences between Postgres and MySQL, so be sure to check these things in a real situation. Terraform apply, and hit yes. And let's see, okay, so parameter group not found, default.postgres 10. So parameter group name, let's see, parameter. I'm wondering if we even need to specify a parameter group since it's in our free tier. Let's see here, subnet group. No, we don't want that. So default.postgres, let's see, 14, although I wonder what that'll look like if I come up here. And I believe we did 13.8, so let's change it to that, and it should go ahead and populate it for us. Let's see, so Where to go? Additional. So default.postgres13 is what we want to do. So yeah, that makes sense. I believe now everything should be good here. Storage type GP2. I guess we can check that while we're here. Storage type. Instance class T3 micro. Yeah, GP2 is our storage type, so that should be fine. All right, so let's go ahead and try this again here. And we'll say yes. And this is looking a little more promising as it hasn't bombed out immediately. So, yep, that looks better. It's going to take a few minutes to create that. And then once it does, again, we'll just go ahead and review everything that it actually created in the console. And then, of course, we'll get rid of everything. There's a command in Terraform, a powerful command called destroy that will destroy all these instances so we don't have to manually go through in the console and do everything. And again, we want to make sure that we destroy things we're not using so we don't end up paying for them. Okay. And by the way, guys, when you saw me do the AWS configure earlier, this assumes that you're using like a access key and a secret access key of a IAM user that has enough permissions to make instances, make databases, make secrets. So just when you're doing these labs in general, it's a good idea to use a admin user and use their credentials rather from the CLI. So I'm feeling pretty confident that this is going to be created, but in the meantime, instead of looking at this, let's go ahead and look at some of the other things that were created. All right. So cancel. So you can see actually here it's spinning up. This is our instance here. It's not done getting created yet, as you can see here, but it's being spun up, right? Our Postgres instance. It's just putting it in the default VPC because we didn't specify anything like that. But as you can see, it's creating this database. And as you might assume, if we come over here, you can see that we have a instance that's running. Again, it was named example instance, so there it is, perfect. But the key here is we want to go to Secrets Manager. And this is really where the money is with this particular lab, because again, we have this secret called DB password, but within here we have the secret value, which we set earlier. So this is what we set earlier. And you just would look at it there if you really needed it, or if you for some reason need to share it, you could do that. But within your source code itself, it's not going to be just having this password just sitting out there anymore. All right. Theoretically, you could just get rid of that secret.tf file that created the secret, because we don't actually need to do anything with that secret. It's just the password is going to be what it is, so we don't need to like update it or anything like that. We can just continue to reference that in here, all right? And that is the more secure way to manage your passwords, as opposed to, again, having them just sitting here in plain text. You would just use that instead, okay? So once this gets done creating, databases generally take just a little bit longer. We'll go ahead and run Terraform destroy. But now, as you can see, we've got a EC2 instance that is up and running, a database instance that's up and running, and they are going to be now referencing the password for this database, which will give access to this instance. And subsequently use a user or developer to this database if that is needed. All right, so that's our final architecture here. So hopefully that's helpful. And if we now come over to here, all right, so now you can see that it is all done and everything is what it is. And then if you were to come to like the Terraform state file, this will show you what the current state is of your resources being managed in and by Terraform. But it's recommended to never directly change this file. That's another lesson though. But this is where you can kind of see what everything actually is, and those values that said, you know, what did it say? It was like known after apply. So those are now going to be listed here if you really needed them. So, you know, for example, if you needed like a IP address, you could reference that here. But again, we don't want to just keep everything up and running because that is going to incur just additional or unnecessary charges there. So what we can do is you can say Terraform planned and add destroy after it. All right. So what that is going to do is it's going to do the same as we did earlier, except it's going to now say for to destroy instead of for to add. So we added for earlier. We now want to get rid of for. In a real scenario, we probably don't want to just wipe out everything. Make sure you're taking backups in case somebody does this. But you could also like target specific resources if to, you know, destroy or change or whatever instead of just doing everything as a whole. Okay, but that looks good to me. So let's go ahead and now just type in Terraform destroy. And again, we are going to, need to confirm because there is no undoing this. And I'm going to say yes, and here we go. So now it's going to go ahead and delete everything. And then once it does that, we can then come into here, and this is usually pretty quick. So you can now see we have no running instances. It already wiped it out. And you can see here, example instance is now shutting down. So that's pretty neat. We're not paying for that. Secrets Manager, this is going to take a little bit to actually get rid of, but it will go away as well. But it's nice to confirm, you know, just so you're not paying for anything. And RDS, same thing. If we come into here, we can see that it is deleting our RDS instance. All right. So guys, that is how you set up Secrets Manager to be used with Terraform when you're managing database instances and EC2 instances. Secrets Manager is a very helpful tool that does apply and fall in line with AWS security best practices. So hopefully that's helpful, and we will see you in the next lab.